Hello, and welcome to another episode of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I am Rico, and I would like to remind everyone that I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, and I am not a medical professional in any way. Just a regular person trying to navigate through life and trying to navigate what's going on here. Like I've mentioned before, it's come a long way, but it still has a long way to go. A lot of things have come to light. A lot of things I've realized about myself, and it helps, but it's not a end all or a be all. It's just little things that help me, but they're not everything. So as I keep working on myself and keep working, it's getting easier, but like I found out, I'm still prone to react in a negative way about things. I'm still prone to react as the hurt child instead of the protective adult. And it's difficult. It really is, because those roots run real deep. So I can only work on them a little bit at a time. And right now I'm just going to take another episode and work on a little bit more. Now, in my last episode, I had touched down on the fact that I broke my back at my last job, and it required surgery. So I had to have 3 back surgeries because the first 2 didn't work. There was still movement. There was no fusion happening. There was still pain. I was still having a lot of problems. So we had a 3rd surgery. And in that same year, I had to have a section of my colon removed due to an enlarged polyp, which was precancerous, which means that if I had left it untreated, it would have turned into cancer. So, I got cut open 2 times with major surgeries in the same year. So after 4 years of sitting on the couch and gaining a little bit of weight and recovery and recuperation and physical therapy, workers' comp had run out, and I was released. And it was determined that I can't really go back to the physical labor, not the work that I was doing before. I was pretty active and it was pretty strenuous work. Like I mentioned, I was moving furniture and I was delivering flooring, and I was handling all kinds of heavy stuff. Even the last job where I was picking orders, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. You still had to, lift and bend and scoop and all that. And it was quite frustrating. But I will touch down on the 4 years I sat at home more in another episode, because that's a whole nother story. But after all of that, it was time for me to get back to work, or at least to start looking for work. We were okay. We saved a lot with the workers' comp, but as usual, it wasn't enough. As usual, I was made to feel guilty, like we were going to lose everything because of me. Even though she saved all of it and kept all of it, I was worthless again, or still. I don't know how you put it. As long as I was receiving that check, everything's okay. Once it stopped, then I was useless. I was a mooch. I was a burden. I was incompetent. I was incapable of contributing. That's how I was made to feel. I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but that's how they made me feel. So I didn't know what I could do, so I started to look around. When you can't do physical labor, you have to look at other options and see what other kind of work is out there. But without any kind of experience, it made it really difficult. I had no experience in anything else except for heavy lifting, back-breaking labor, which literally broke my back. And so I start looking around. I start looking at want ads, and I start looking at social media, just kind of testing the waters. Anybody know of anybody hiring? And I will get back to that in just a second after I take a quick break with a little more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Getting back to the topic of trying to find work. Trying to find work when you only have done one type of work your whole life and now you can't do that anymore. It was a little discouraging, a little frustrating. I have no formal education. When I was young and I was a kid, they made me feel like I was stupid, like I wasn't college worthy. My parents even told me, if you're going to go to college, you're going to pay for it. They weren't willing to help me at all. And it's funny because years and years later, they tried to guilt me for not going to college. But when I was at the age where I could have gotten some kind of education, they told me, no, you're not good enough for that. Like I said before, they are revisionists. They like to remember things different than what they really were. And, always turn it out so I'm a bad guy. And that's just how it was. But with no formal education and only experience with physical labor, I was looking and looking and looking for work, and my ex just made it worse. She just made me feel like I was gonna be the source of us losing everything. We were gonna lose the house, and we were gonna lose the cars, and we were gonna lose all of our money, and we were never gonna get to retire, all because of me, because I couldn't find work right away. Right away. I feel like she wanted me to find a job like the week that the workers' comp ran out. Things don't happen that quickly. And she had no patience for any of it at all. She just made me question my abilities, made me question my intelligence. Anytime I would suggest maybe I could do this and maybe I could do that, she would, respond with, why would they hire you? Why would they hire you? And a lot of the time she would do that to me, and it was frustrating. It really was. It was damaging to my confidence. It was very damaging to my self-opinion. Feeling useless already. Now now I can't even do the heavy lifting I used to do. I didn't know what usefulness I had at all. So I applied at a few places, and then I just saw a social media post about some former classmates opening a coffee shop. Now I would like to call them friends, but they were not. They were more just acquaintances, more just former classmates. We were never really friends. We didn't hang out. And even the time that I was there, they weren't friends. They were something else. So I contacted them, and I inquired because they said they were going to open a shop and they were looking to build a team. So contacted them, and I said I have no experience, but I'm a fast learner. I learn pretty quickly when it's when I need to do something. And even though I had no experience, they didn't have any experience in owning a shop either, so they decided to give me a chance. And they built this small team, and I went and I helped them with the build out of the place. I did a lot of the painting. I did a lot of work. Some of their furniture I put together. Worked on a lot in that place. So they were just paying me cash for the work that I was doing there. And if you go there now, if you look above the drop ceilings, you probably see my name in there still somewhere. Probably some skulls that I drew as well. I left my mark there. I leave my mark everywhere I go. But once everything was ready, they assembled a small crew and got everything started. Everybody seemed to get along at first. At first, which is a common theme. Every time I get into a new situation, it's okay at first, but not for long. And, everything was good. We were making okay money. We were making some tips, and the place started to become a little bit popular. We were seeing a lot of return customers, a lot of people coming back. Social media posts from them were doing pretty well, and people were sharing. And it was kind of fun at first. It was all right. I got to I got to get some training, and didn't take long for me to get pretty good at making coffee drinks, making lattes, doing the latte art, all that stuff. And it was okay. It was okay at first. But I'm going to take a real quick break, and I'll be right back with a little more of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Welcome back to This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. I'd like to get back to the topic of working in a local coffee shop. I mentioned before that the place was starting to gain popularity. It was new place in town, so people were interested. And quite honestly, the drinks that we made were pretty good. But once the popularity started, then the owners became I don't know how to say it. They saw themselves as the faces. They saw themselves as the ones who were popular. They equated the popularity to themselves. And they quickly developed these giant egos very quickly. They weren't like that at first. Everything was cool at first, but once it started gaining traction, they saw themselves as superior to everyone, and they made sure that we knew it. And they told us every chance that they got. They would work some shifts once in a while, but once things got busy, they didn't work any shifts. They were always either sitting in their little office, which incidentally, it was a break room at first, and then they decided to just take it over and make it their own little pad. They brought in a couch and a TV, and they had their monitors, and they had the cameras, and they would watch us while they were in the office. And it was really weird. It was really creepy. But sometimes they would pop their heads out and mention something that they just happened to see on the camera while we're there. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating because suddenly now they're above everyone. Suddenly now you owe them appreciation because they were doing us a favor by giving us jobs. And they were very, very stingy. They weren't going to offer any kind of compensation or incentives or anything. You had to get the tips from the people if you wanted to make a little bit more. And anytime there were complaints or concerns, they just ignored it, all of it. And they truly didn't care. They didn't care. They only cared about their own image. They only cared about their own finances. They only cared about themselves. And then the coworkers started to become difficult as well. They were two, and they were the absolute worst. But they hung out with the owners. They would go out drinking with the owners. They would, they were their little best friends. So they got the free pass. They got the favorite, the favoritism was kicking in pretty hard. They weren't going to do any of the hard work. They weren't going to clean. They weren't going to do any of the physical stuff. They were just going to hang out and maybe make some coffee drinks, maybe. And that's all they wanted to do. That's all they wanted to do was just hang out and make everybody else work around them. They saw themselves up there with the owners, and the owners kind of encouraged it. It enabled them. They were enablers. They just let them do it. Anytime I had a concern about it, they didn't care. And one time we had to have a meeting with one of the employees and me to talk things out, and it was just the worst. It was absolutely the worst. And again, I find myself in a familiar situation. working hard because I because I have integrity, working hard because I care about something. If I'm doing something, I want it to be the best that it can possibly be. But I work hard, I'm ignored. I work hard, I'm ignored. Again, I found myself in this spot again, and I don't know what it is. If it's me just hoping that they'll notice, or them just taking advantage. Maybe they noticed, but they didn't really care, and they just thought, as long as he's doing it, then it's okay. And that was discouraging and frustrating, and I found myself in this spot again. But I'm going to take a real quick break. I'll be back with a little more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I'm touching down on the topic of my work jobs experiences. And these are my post back surgery experiences. And this one in particular is working for a local coffee shop where I found myself working extra hard, trying to be noticed, trying to get a little acknowledgement, maybe a little approval. You know, part of my problem throughout my life was seeking approval. I couldn't get it from my parents. I couldn't get it from my siblings. I couldn't get it from anybody. Even my friends, they were just kind of like, they tolerated me, but I never really got approval. And, looking back on all that, I shouldn't have looked for their approval. I should have just believed in myself and believed in my abilities, believed in what I could do, regardless of what they thought. But I believed that, I think back then I believed that if they thought I was good, then maybe it'll be more good things for me. And it wasn't. They didn't notice. They didn't care at all. The place soon became a revolving door for employees because their egos and their arrogance just drove people away. They found better jobs. They found better things to do. And then they would hire these high school kids who, I don't mean to be mean, but they were just kind of dumb. They didn't really have life experience. They always had somebody coddling them. They always had somebody taking care of them. So, of course, they would get special treatment because they were young, because they were kids. And I had to do a lot of the work. I never got special treatment. I never got any of that. I just did the work and I got nothing for it. I gave much of myself to this place, much of myself. I got nothing in return. They didn't acknowledge any of it. Again. This is a common thing. And I can look back on it now and I can reflect on it and say that I'm not going to let myself do that again. I'm not going to let myself be in that position again. I'm not going to let anybody treat me like that again. I'm not. I just am not. But I got super frustrated. I can't even remember what happened, but they let me go. They decided that I wasn't a good fit there anymore and just out of the blue let me go. We had some sort of argument, some sort of falling out. And, anytime someone asks me about it, I will just say, I have nothing bad to say about them, but I have nothing good to say about them either. So I found myself without employment again. And this time, I decided to take a couple weeks off before I was going to start looking for something. Now, I should mention that during the time that I worked here, my marriage had completely deteriorated, and we decided we were going to split up for good. And I had moved out. So I moved out of the house and found myself a little apartment. And there's more to this story, which will be in another episode. And I had my own place here in town. So when I got let go, I just took some time off. I had a little bit of money so I could relax a little bit. Kind of took a unofficial vacation. And it was much appreciated because I was frustrated and it was a relief to not have to deal with that anymore. A big relief. So I started looking for work again, but at my leisure. It was easy going. And I'll touch on that in the next episode of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. I'm going to conclude this video. I just want to say thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for everything. I appreciate you. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And deeply, deeply from the heart of my bottom, I thank you. And with that, I'm going to end this video and say that I will be back very, very soon with another episode of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Hopefully I can get a little more reflection on where I am in life. Thanks.